As a young child, Halloween was always a favorite time of the year. Not only was it an opportunity to dress up like one of my superheroes, but it was also a time to gather in all the loot, all that candy. When we were young, not old enough to go out on our own, my dad would take us and we would come back, and after trick-or-treating, we would, all three of us, empty our bags onto the floor to take a look at what we have, and then started to trade what we didn't want with each other. All the Three Musketeer bars, however, had to always go to Dad. I think that was for payment for taking us around. But I do remember one time when my oldest brother Pat, was old enough to go out on his own with a group of his friends in the neighborhood. And my dad took Mike and I out, and when we came back, we were sitting on the floor with our candy, going through, and then in walked my brother Pat, and he was covered in dirt, and his bag was empty. Evidently, some older teenagers in the neighborhood thought it would be funny to go around and steal candy from kids. And when he told us the story, we could see the sadness that he was going through. Mike and I, without any prompting from our parents, decided to push all our candy into one pile, and the three of us were going to divide up what we had. I'd like to tell you that that's how we always treated each other and acted, but unfortunately for my parents, I don't think that was always the case. But anyways, once again, Jesus is doubling down on his message of being merciful to others as God has been merciful to us. Whenever Jesus repeats himself in teachings, it's always to emphasize the importance, the seriousness of the lesson that he's offering. He does that in chapter 6 of John with the Bread of Life discourse, going over and over again how we are to eat his flesh and to drink his blood. He repeats that time and time again to drive the point home that that's literally what he's talking about. And he does the same again in the parable today. We've heard this the last few weeks in different ways, but we're reminded that through the parable of Lazarus and the rich man, that we are to be merciful to others as God has been merciful to us, especially for those who are poor and those who are in need, to be able to look after them. He directs this parable right to the Pharisees, who are a group of people who are supposed to be examples in religion of holiness, of goodness, to the people that they're serving, but instead they have take a look at their possessions, and their desire for wealth has consumed them so much that they become blind to the needs of those around them, that instead of sharing the gifts that they have received, they hold it for themselves. And so Jesus is giving them a very important message today. It's the same message that Amos the prophet gave in the first reading today, how important it is for us to be aware of those around us and to share the gifts that we have. St. Paul even goes a step further in saying that as children of God, we're also to seek the treasures of heaven. And as we seek the treasures of heaven to accumulate the gifts of God's wisdom, his love, his forgiveness, his understanding, becoming like God, we do that when we seek those treasures. And the treasures of the earth that are given to us are to be used to help those in need. Once again, Jesus calls us, he calls us to act as his children, and his children act in the same way that he acts, and that is to show mercy to others, to be merciful to others. So let us pray for that gift of mercy this day, that we may continue to grow in his abundant mercy, so that as we receive that gift, that treasure of heaven, it may be a gift that freely flows from our heart to those around us, so that we as children of God are also instruments of God's mercy.